connection there.
Yeah.
This is the WrestleZone wrap-up on Thursday, October 29th, 2020, our final wrap-up for October 2020. This year is almost over, guys. We're almost there, but this is a big one. We've got WWE financial call information. We've got news on a Vince McMahon documentary. We've got Twitch accounts being suspended, ratings talk. Let's get into all of it. I'm your host, Robert D. Felice. You can follow me on Twitter at DudeFelice. With me is a man that I have called the best writer on staff here at WrestleZone. Dominic D'Angelo does so much work for us. Dom, how are you doing, bud?
Doing good, man. Robert, thanks for the introduction. That's awesome.
I call it like I see it, bud.
Hey, thank you. I do what I can. It's fun. I like it.
It is fun, and we had a lot of fun with this investor call. It started out with a bang. We had Vince. We had Steph. That's,
Fringe.
that is something. We had Nick Khan and Christina Salem, two of the new executives at WWE. So we had a lot of stuff going on, but I think the biggest thing that I felt coming out of this call was that Vince McMahon is going to be the subject of a multi-part documentary series. Bill Simmons will be involved, and this will be going to Netflix. Now, what do you think about this right off the bat?
Here's what I think about it. So, yeah, I did not see the Andre the Giant documentary, but on HBO, which was also produced by Bill Simmons. But knowing Bill Simmons and knowing how he he takes away all his journalistic side of things when it comes to enjoying WWE. So he's more of a fan than he is a journalist of it. So or a writer for it, anything like that, anything covering it. So him executive producing this already tells me what this documentary is going to be about, and it's going to be about praising the growth of McMahon and the empire that he's created, and almost being the father of professional wrestling, even though that's not the case at all. But that's what's going to be conveyed, I believe, ultimately. I'm sure there'll be some holes and different controversies, obviously, that float in, because you got to have that in there and stuff like that. But ultimately, it's going to position McMahon in a very, very positive light. So that's my thought.
Here's the deal. I don't think you can get a McMahon story out without touching on the controversy, and they will.
Mm-hmm.
But it will be glossed over enough to make sure that the ending story is Vince is always on top. And you know what? I understand that. Listen, I saw the Andre the Giant documentary. Banger piece of business. Vince, one of the very few times that Vince is raw, he's crying on camera. I expect to see a lot learned about Vince McMahon, the man. Who really is Vincent Kennedy McMahon? We know the character. We know the guy who has, been a ruthless, hostile SOB. But who is the guy? He's a father of two. He loves his children. You can't tell me otherwise. Even on that media call.
We heard that on the conference call today.
Absolutely. I'm excited to learn about Vince. I'm excited that they're partnering with Netflix. Back in '85, they were on the pulse with the Rock and Wrestling Connection. They understood MTV. They're a little late to the Netflix dance. I'm not going to do the Kevin and blow smoke too much, but they are late to Netflix. I hope that this is more growth, because we heard a lot about that. And we heard a lot of people talk about how TikTok, they're only number 2 behind the NBA. I'm not a TikTok guy. I can't speak too much on that.
I don't know what that is. I know what it is, but I don't know anything.
They spoke a lot about, doing Zoom calls for Make-A-Wish kids. And it really gets you thinking about how they did send out that internal memo of, hey, don't be doing this because we want to have you doing this. For the first time in a long time, maybe all year, Vince McMahon sounded optimistic and vibrant about the direction of his company, and that's exciting. I mean, it's been a turbulent year for Vince. He had to file bankruptcy on the XFL, to handle that piece of business. All the plans with Mania and the network got derailed. We'll get into that as we talk a little bit more about this call. But what else really stuck out for you from this media call, or this investor call, rather?
Well, let's see. Their talk about like their potential TV deals, like how long, like kind of avoiding that, the length of their TV deals kind of stood out to me regarding NXT. And then there was something else that really, like, I was like, well, that's kind of like a telling thing. I can't remember what it is though. But there was also the part about just the ending of it. Where it's like,
hold up on that for a second. Let's talk about let's talk a little bit more about what else we heard on this call. They're going to be partnering with Sony in India, who are their media distribution partners in India.
Yeah.
And for a show specifically built around their Indian talent. To me, that means Kavita Devi, who we've seen in the WrestleMania Women's Battle Royal in the past. Maybe some Jinder Mahal. Maybe some new Indian signings. But this is probably going to be a big move for them because it'll be an event exclusive to them. Didn't say whether it would be held over there, but it's centered around Indian talent and it will be shown domestically in the U.S. That's coming next year.
Yeah,
but we also heard about, Dusty the Cat is just doing a wild run in here.
Probably cat, but there too.
We had a lot of other stuff on this call, like Nick Khan saying they're proud of NXT's numbers, congratulating Paul Levesque, but they didn't say that they would share the information because maybe USA isn't comfortable sharing the information of the extent of their deal.
Of the deal, yeah.
Now, I understand that. Listen, they can't come out here and spill the beans entirely, but they did. There was a lot of questions about, like, hey, your ratings are down, to which, for the first time ever, and I don't know if Vince McMahon was, like, coached in this, but he was just like, hey, wait a minute. We have more fans than ever before because you got to count YouTube and digitals and all these things. And Vince sounded happy. Like, I feel like for the first time all year, WWE might know where they're going in a business direction.
I think that's a pretty good look at it, Robert. Like, I feel that, yeah, he was positive, and it's it is a telling sign that potentially they kind of maybe have some sort of solid direction. Now, whether that's like solid in regards to how Vince views it and in comparison to how fans view it, might be a little bit of a different story. But from a directional standpoint, yeah, I'm sure some wheels and gears are turning there, and it will be pretty fascinating to see how things go down this road. Yeah, there's a lot to take away. Vince is like, hearing him on these conference calls, it's like really weird because he seems to get harder and harder to understand.
I know, it breaks my heart.
Yeah.
Punt the ad off for 5 seconds. Breaks my heart to hear Vince McMahon getting older and older and older. It really does.
So.
But, let's talk about this, because early in the year, in February, in the Q1 call, it's a much different world in February. We were just excited about Mania season, excited about the XFL, and Vince spoke about conversations with major distribution outlets about the direction of their network. Now, they did say they've resumed these talks. They wouldn't put a concrete date on anything, but they did say this does not include the outright selling of WWE Network to another platform, rather just expanding the distribution channels. So I think we see a little bit of that with Peacock. You've seen that this year. Peacock is probably the one of like 2 subscription services available that I don't have. But, we've seen that they got their stuff on there. We've seen the advancement of the free tier, the advancement of the indies on the network. What is it that you think they can do with the network to make it more viable to, like, your brother, let's say, like a casual fan?
Like the casual fan, and I think this kind of is highlighted in how they present their product now. You look at like who won the title at Hell in a Cell?
Randy Orton.
So we have a star that's established that fans, maybe not too casual. Like Randy Orton's, like as a star as he is, he's not quite a wrestling household name, like in regards to things. But he's an established star that most fans will recognize. So like I think you play further back. I mean, you look at just this past Wednesday with the ratings here, which we're going to talk about. Halloween Havoc hitting the nostalgia points.
Oh yeah,
that's the reason that they got those, and I think they executed it well from what I've heard. So the matter of them getting back that casual fan is more nostalgia. And, that's not good long term, I don't think, because you really want to establish future stars and stuff like that. But from a network perspective, you really want to push those buttons to get those casual fans back in the mix for that.
But now, what is it that you think for the 1-2 punch that you can parlay in the main roster to actually increase your everyday ratings? Because yes, they did talk about this a lot on the call. Linear television viewing is down.
Yes.
People don't watch TV anymore. I understand that. You've got YouTube TV and Sling, and there's all these different platforms and just different ways to consume media. But what can we do? Like, what do you do to say, all right, we got you with that Attitude Era nostalgia. Now here's this superstar that's going to make you want to keep watching us next week?
Well, therein lies the problem, because they're already taking steps back. And from a television perspective, you want to try to get ratings up. You got a lot of groundwork you got to kind of crack down the building that you have right now and kind of build from the ground up again in a lot of ways, because you stop and restart with so many of your stars, whether it's Keith Lee, whether it's Drew McIntyre on this level, and then even Matt Riddle, despite controversy or whatever. If all that's clear, he's a star that you want to establish. Further stars like Big E, everything like that. You want to make sure that you're planning long term for these guys, and you're not going week to week, basing on a Vince whim of what should happen on Raw or SmackDown. That was kind of I was waiting on the conference call. Not that I was going to get onto it, but I had a question ready to roll, and it was akin to that. Was like, hey, how are you putting a belt on somebody like a Randy Orton? Speak to your long-term financial plans in regards to building new stars and getting that off. And you're not doing that. WWE is not doing that right now.
So if I may just try my hand at that question, to put it on an established star like Randy could potentially provide more eyes on the product when Randy hands that title to the next young star that we want to build off of.
But you're looking at who they were positioning at before he got hurt, and that was Edge. So you're looking, Randy and Edge again? That's...
Randy and Edge can strike a nerve with the core audience while then saying, hey, fan from 10 years ago, you remember this guy Edge from when you were in 5th grade? He's back. Oh, now he's going to fight Riddle. Look at Riddle's awesome.
Is he awesome? Is he awesome? Because he jobbed out to AJ Styles, and he was afraid of a really big guy.
Yeah, I know. I get what you're saying. They have a lot of core problems that we always touch on. I'm just saying, if I was in that dreaded position, and let me say I would never want to be, of having to defend this from a business perspective, that would be my go-to of, hey, more people know these people, so let's rope them in with this, and maybe you'll stick around for NXT.
But they don't think like that. Vince doesn't think like that. He thinks okay, I got to rely on old reliable here, and that's Randy, that's Edge, that's, hey, let's bring on John Cena if we can. Let's get Ric Flair on the show. Let's get Big Show back in. He's always reliable. They don't. That's the problem. They're not going to, if they don't build stars and create stars consistently, week after week, they're not going to build these ratings back up. It's been a telling sign since the early 10,000 or 2010s. That's what's been going on. And it's
you know what? I think from a personal perspective, I think that in the 2010s they saw an avenue through part-time stars to pop ratings.
Sure.
And I think that they forgot that, hey, Mike Mizanin's busting his ass for you. You can turn him into a money player. Dolph Ziggler is busting his ass for you. I know The Rock is great, but don't forget about these guys, and I think they did. And I think that has reflected in the problems they have today.
I think maybe they forgot, but also I think it was intentional in a lot of ways because WWE, Vince wants to make and you look at throughout those years, he wants to make the brand the star. He wants to make the McMahons the star, and they were the stars like so many throughout those years.
See, but the unfortunate truth, Dominic, is if I put out an ad for Monday Night Raw today that says this coming Monday, Triple H, Stephanie McMahon, Shane McMahon, and Vince McMahon are going to be in a ring discussing something. I don't have to tell you what they're discussing. They'll be in a ring discussing something. So many people are going to tune into Raw because they are the stars, but they're not the stars. They'll do it once, but you got to hook them, and that's the truth. You have to hook them because they will be stars because of how well they built their equity through the Attitude Era. And it all goes back to, hey, remember when we were cool? And I think that they need to get away from that and focus on, hey, how can we become cool again? Now, guys, if you are watching, we thank you so much. I want to remind you, share the link. Get some other people in here. I do see the Stephen Chambers and the James the people who are always with us. We appreciate that. But we want more people here because, this wrestling gig, there's so many platforms, and we want people to focus on the zone. So if you just share the link, that would be such a great help. Now, Dominic, we touched on Matt Riddle a little bit.
Yep.
But here's the problem. I don't know who Matt Riddle is, but I do know who Riddle is. Matt Riddle has lost his first name. What's up, Dominic? Why?
That's the question that will remain. I mean, you.
Riddle me this.
Riddle me that, Robert.
Whatever happened to the man named Matt? I don't. Listen, the reality is he's commented on this on social media saying he's okay with it. He's called Riddle more often anyway. Fightful Select has reported that this is in response to Vince McMahon being blown away by his match against Sheamus on Raw, and it was a banger match. So if this is the way of saying, hey, I like you, same thing with Cesaro, I'm good with it. It's just a little silly.
It's, Steve Austin had a full name. Bret Hart had a full name. Shawn Michaels had a full name.
Kane didn't.
But you know what? They were established characters. Nobody's just okay, Kane wasn't his last name. It wasn't Jake Kane, or it wasn't.
We don't have the last name to them. They're just.
There's plenty of, you're not just cutting off half of this person's name and just hey, that's who you're associating him with now. Okay, you remember him as Matt Riddle. Well, he's now just Riddle. It's okay.
So it is weird because Otis was Otis Dozovic, right?
Yeah.
And I guess Dozovic's a weird name, but Matt isn't. Or Dominic Dijakovic. I can understand if you say, well, we got Dominic Mysterio, so we're going to drop that and just call you Dijakovic. Now, of course, they're calling him T-Bar, so he's not even in the conversation here. There's the Mustafa Ali. He lost his name, got it back, lost it, got it back. This is just a weird thing that they do. I think going forward, they need to be more selective about the name choices going forward. I wouldn't want to see Rhea Ripley become just Ripley.
Or Rhea.
I'm guessing they'd skip over Rhea and go with Ripley, but who knows? Maybe Raquel Gonzalez would just be Raquel. I don't necessarily want that. So I feel like when selecting a name and going into WWE, you should probably be it should be more of a team effort for what are we going to want moving forward? Because we don't want to lose equity out of the blue because we're deciding to change your thing.
Yeah, I don't. It's just a bad trade-off. And you know what? You kind of look at it. Was it you that was talking in the chat a few days ago? Was about the how remember? No, I saw this on Twitter. It was like the going, which I totally forgot about. Was like the going trend of like going to commercial breaks and making sure the matches like ended or something with a commercial. It was so weird. Remember when they did that? It was like that break weird format that they had that Vince had a hang up on. This has been a hang up that he's had for years on end now. Is just cutting off people's names and like, how are you gonna somebody like an Otis? We know who he is, but you're to market him to a broader base as a wrestler. Hey, this is Otis, the wrestler. That's it. There's nothing else to distinguish him other than Otis. There's plenty of other Otises. There's Milo and Otis. There's Otis, I think, from Andy Griffith, the drunk in the jail cell. It's old, but it's still there. Like, there's Otises. Okay, there's not just one Otis.
And there's Otis from Barnyard. You remember that movie? The cow.
Sure, yeah, of course.
Like obviously we have touched on the differences in our lives because you're referencing Andy Griffith and I'm referencing a cartoon. Like, I get where you're going. There's different things. And Riddle is just bad because immediately I think of the Riddler and I think of Jim Carrey. I don't know. Listen, in 2 weeks, I'll admit, in 2 weeks, this won't mean anything. Like, we'll just be used to calling him Riddle. We'll still be able to throw in Matt there. That is his last name. It's like Goldberg. You can call him Bill Goldberg, or you can just call him Goldberg. But it's just one of those strange, like, oh, hey, he's not Matt anymore.
Don't remember that guy. Remember Riddle.
All right, yes. But let's get back on this big-time investor call because it had a really nice touch with Stephanie McMahon saying, WWE Universe is like a family. We call it a universe because it's inclusive. By the way, they've been calling it WWE Universe for 12 years now. I want you to know that. So there's probably a whole generation of people who don't even know when that wasn't a thing. But,
weird to think.
Stephanie's very proud of the work that she's done with the brand. And I got the vibe of, like, is Stephanie inching closer up the corporate ladder? That was the vibe I got because I don't usually hear her on these calls, but they were very happy to have her there.
Yeah, like I was surprised to hear her in attendance. Like, not that but like, she was there. Anytime Steph like pitches any of this stuff and reads it off, it just sounds so hokey and phony, and like, I'm sure she's proud of the work she does, and and obviously she's a hard worker. There's no doubt about that. But it's just like all this stuff is just glommed, corporate. When you attend a WrestleMania now, how many like, oh, hey, look at patting themselves on the back of what have we all done? Look at the great work we do for everybody. When it's just like, come on, just show us a freaking wrestling product here, and you want to answer to the corporate star, like you want to feel big time. You want to feel like you're bigger than what it all is, and it's just like, I don't want any of that, and a lot of the fans just don't want any of that either. So, I mean, she was there, and made those comments, or like made all that stuff, and got all the buzzwords in, and that even they got the whole Forbes thing. Even though, like, it's all like, you think about it, like, okay, you guys screwed up this pandemic really bad for a while until you guys got a hold of it. It's just like, I don't know. It's just like, it just never really sits well with me when it comes to that.
So, yes, and here's some breaking news. And I know you guys are like, wait a minute. The title of this video says, update on WWE's edict for third-party platforms. And yes, there is an update because AJ Styles, Mia Yim are no longer on Twitch. They are suspending their Twitch activities. Two sides of the coin here. Mia Yim was doing a lot of charitable work on her Twitch. I hope this isn't the end for her Twitch. AJ Styles had a lot of fun with his gang. He loves playing video games. I enjoyed watching him on Twitch. What do you think? Is this the end of, like, superstars just freely going on Twitch?
Yeah, I mean, it looks that way. I mean, it stinks because, like, a lot of these stars, This is like I was telling you off the air. Like this is how they make their they flex their creative muscles when WWE doesn't let them to. Like you look at Mia Yim this past Monday, she seized up or like freaked out, and like that was her creative. Booking decision that they made for her. She's not gonna feel creative unless she like these stars. They're creative people. They're wrestlers, so they know about storytelling and things like that. You like the majority of them do, and that's why they've gotten this far, and they're driven. So like to take that outlet away from them when they're in WWE and it's so confined or so honed in on what one person wants and not the creative aspect of it, it really it's a detriment. And maybe what we will start seeing is some of these stars kind of pushing more and more back. Like you even look at Paige, she's pushed back at this kind of stuff already, and so I don't know. But right now, it seems like kind of the end of this whole Twitch thing for a lot of the stars, which is unfortunate.
I think that as a platform, Twitch was likely to be the first step in, just more entertainers breaking into the direct social media game, because I think social media is like Twitter that are more widespread or becoming less popular, and now you can like directly communicate with your audience like we do. We take your questions, and imagine being able to do that with The Rock. Like,
yeah,
The Rock could just get on Twitch one day and do that, and he can communicate directly with his audience. I think that this was leading towards that, but I don't know if I necessarily feel like this is a bad move on WWE's behalf, because they are protecting their intellectual property in regards to like the characters that they have on their Monday show, their Wednesday show, and their Friday show. Also, when you start streaming and you say, hey, this isn't going to count towards your downside guarantee, which is something we've heard, I think that's as a compensation for the house shows. Now, this is my opinion. I haven't gotten any information on that, but I feel like that's maybe them saying, hey, we're not going to run live events. We're going to run this, and you're going to do these Zoom calls with fans. And that'll be your, interaction for the week or the month or whatever.
Yeah, that's screwed up. Like, it's like, because you're dipping into their till doing that stuff, and to put the wrestlers in that position where like that, like, from I understand maybe from a WWE corporate side of thing of wanting to control certain things, and obviously maybe what gets said and certain things during these streams, or you do want to be careful of that. Like, you don't, like, obviously, like, these are talents and they're gonna be who they are, but as a corporation you do want to like kind of be careful of that. But you look from the view of the wrestlers, and you're hurting their goodwill in a lot of ways, building goodwill, and keeping talent around and wanting to stay around, where heck, there's some competition obviously out there now, obviously AEW and things like that. So hey, I get to not only flex my creativity on air, but I get to do this my own Twitch channel, and I get to do this, or whereas WWE, they're really pushing the limits down more and more on you, and it's unfair. And obviously they're the top dog, and they that's who everybody associates wrestling with it today. But long term, that's not good. It's not good to do.
Let's be clear, WWE is very much Kleenex. They are a brand, but they get the top billing, and they're basically synonymous with the product. This is going to be one of those fluid situations that we're going to have to just keep an eye on, because it does hurt. A lot of people, like, for example, Miro over in AEW, he loves his Twitch. It's become his gimmick. Like,
to his detriment.
Perhaps we'll talk about that in a minute. Don't worry. And he wouldn't be able to do that in WWE. I just think it's one of those things. It's unfortunate, because I know Mia, when Casey of Squared Circle Sirens passed, like, Mia raised money through Twitch, and stuff like that you don't want to hamper.
No.
If
And
you're gonna
they
say,
are
hey,
doing that. Like, no matter if you're doing it from a corporate perspective, you want to have that connection. Like, I mean, any company, whether you're like Amazon, a grocery store, whatever, you want to have that connection with your employees and create that strong, goodwill between the employer and the employee. And this is not doing it. And it's gonna affect it in some form or fashion. Like the ways are we're showing signs of what's happening, but there's gonna be more to come for this.
It's all about integrating into their corporate structure, because if you look at the network additions over the last 3 weeks or so, they've added Swerve City, they've added the Sam Roberts Show, they've added a ton of just
Chasing Glory,
like just generic podcasts. Chasing Glory, we have an interview with Lillian Garcia up in a podcast feed right now about that jump. They're getting more into the modern media landscape, and you can say yes, they are well behind the curve, but they're getting there now, and now they know they need to make up ground. But again, it's going to be one of those things that's always going to be highly debated, especially as other brands freely allow Twitch, like in AEW, which is very into Twitch. I'm always seeing like Brandon Cutler and Colt Cabana and Miro playing Among Us on Twitch. It's very interesting to see how much they're into their, letting them be their own people. I do think eventually, like, for a full-on union, I don't know if wrestlers want that as much as they think they do, because that would crush a lot of the, free spirit stuff you see on the independents. I don't think that can happen.
Yeah, I mean, the unionized stuff is definitely like, I don't know if it's fit for these times. I mean, I'm sure it is to an extent, but I mean, yeah, a lot of that can be, I mean, there's a lot of red tape and everything to go through with that. So it's like, there's just, I think for it all to work out, there's just got to be a mutual understanding between employer and employee. And, you're not really getting that with WWE at the moment, and AEW is obviously a little bit more lenient with that. So,
now
you said a fluid situation though.
Now you mentioned WWE and All Elite Wrestling. We got to talk about ratings, Zone, because it is Thursday. It's a busier Thursday than normal with the conference call. But Halloween Havoc hits it big. What are the ratings for this week, Dominic?
Oh, God, you throw me right there. Let's see here. They are, well, I mean, obviously, Halloween Havoc beat out.
They did. They beat out NXT.
Yes.
Or they beat out AEW.
781,000 viewers overall, while Halloween Havoc, what did that do here? I'm looking here, sorry. Drew 876,000 viewers from 60. Well, a big jump from 644,000 from last year.
Now, I have to just, first of all, I want to say this is a well-deserved jump for WWE. Halloween Havoc was a very fun program. Now, I know that AEW does win the demo, so don't worry. Chris Jericho can still cut his Demo God promo. But, they deserve that extra viewership, because I think Halloween Havoc was a strong show. Now, you watch Dynamite because you do the two Dynamite Dudes with Attitudes that drops every Friday on the podcast feed. Did you find yourself going, can I sneak over to NXT real quick?
Little bit. I didn't sneak over because I don't get USA but anymore.
That's fair.
But like, I was certainly, if I had that option and I wasn't covering AEW for the site, I probably might have snuck a couple sneaks over there.
That I used to cover AEW for the site, and it does eventually, you're like, I want to see what the other guys are doing. Now, I did watch both, and Halloween Havoc, with that main event especially, with Io Shirai and Candice LeRae, crushed it in that main event. Tables, ladders, and screams. First ever women's TLC match, one-on-one, and it was a strong one. I was a little surprised that they went with Io over Candice, seeing as Johnny won the North American belt, but this was such a fun show. shout out to them. Shout out to our very own John Clark, who did guarantee that Halloween Havoc would outdo them in viewers, and he did get it right.
Jeez.
Going over to Dynamite real quick, I saw a comment that asked about the Young Bucks stipulation for Full Gear. Now, what did you think about this? They essentially did the whole Cody, well, we lose, we'll never challenge for the tag team titles again. What'd you think?
This whole on two Dynamite dudes with my brother Marcus, we're not too big of fans of how the Young Bucks have been portrayed on Dynamite and like how it's not been building with. I mean, obviously a feud's building with FTR, but like not the way fans wanted it to be executed or anything like that. And I think this is another step that was just head scratching, where it's just like, why are you going to this where you already used this with Cody? Is this an indication that, they're all three of those guys are turning heel? Plus you have Kenny healing and stuff like that. It's just like, where is this going? And it made things it continued week in and week out. Things get muddier and muddier and more unclear with what the intention is here. And I don't think it lent itself to this. I don't like that stipulation. I just think already you use that. Why use it again? I don't get it. I don't get it, Robert.
I am a guy who works for many websites, as is frequently joked about on this podcast.
Yes, mercenary.
I am the mercenary, and I was over on Fightful, and we were talking about the, what do we think about the stipulation? And I just think this is egregious. I really do. I just think that
you said, I'm glad you're more flat out about it.
Like, I just think this is flat out like, oh, well, we want you to know that we don't always want to put ourselves over. I'm hoping this is a red herring and they win the belts.
Yeah.
Because if they lose...
If that even happens, though, look at FTR. Like, they're a team that... Big signing you made. Big signing. And you want... they're the top tag team, arguably, in wrestling right now. So to have them have the belts and then drop the belts this quick, they just pinned themselves in a really bad corner that they painted themselves in a really bad corner that they didn't even need to do.
Yeah, I described this as a hat on a hat on a hat. Like, you've got the one North American tag team dream match in the last 20 years, maybe 15, 20 years. And you're like, I know we'll have Matt Jackson sell an ankle injury. Oh, I know we'll have,
we'll have them act like dickheads for some reason.
Yeah, we'll have that. And they did kind of explain it, and it's more along the lines of the Cody, like, oh, we're going to give you the old Young Bucks because we've been too happy and we've been too plucky. But then they add the stipulation that kind of says, hey, but we don't want to put ourselves over too much. It's like, you're doing too much here. I really just want to see you guys go out there, just tear it up for 30 minutes. And then we can move on with our lives, and you would have given us the greatest tag team match this side of the globe in years. And that's what I wanted.
But too much glom on it. Too much, like, gaga all surrounding it.
Too much glom. My thing is, hot potatoing titles isn't great, but these are two teams that you can hot potato a lot. So I'm hoping that's what we get here. Bucks win it here. FTR gets it back. You can have some Iron Man matches, some ladder matches, some cage matches, some 2 out of 3 falls matches. You can do this match in every kind of stipulation, and it will work.
Here's what I really want, though, is I just want an answer, like, with what is happening here. I understand, like, you maybe are trying to maybe hold off on some things because you want live crowds back, and you got live crowds, but like, and you're in a pandemic, but it's like, give us some answers here, because the spinning the wheels and making things more and more confusing. It's obviously it's turning me off. It turned you off. It's not sticking with fans here, and it's just something that needs to be. You got to address something here. Give us some sort of answer. That's what I want, like, more than anything else. I think out of this whole thing, this feud.
Yeah, and I don't know. I feel like AEW is just, so like, but we're great because we're not WWE. Let's talk about the Lumberjack match real quick. Did you watch So you watched the whole thing, right? You watched.
Oh, yeah, the whole shebang. The whole shebang.
All right. So who was the heel in that match?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, Cody, I would say, obviously, like.
Well, why?
Well, I mean, just how he acted in the ring and continues to. He tends to get a little heelish in there, and then ultimately the ending of the story was like Arn punched
Well, hold on, because
yeah, I know
Trent
what you're gonna say.
Beretta punched
Yeah.
Cody Rhodes with zero reason to do that. Oh, Cody never shoved you. He's in a match with your friend. Why are you punching Cody? All right, then you get John Silver, and John Silver versus Orange Cassidy will be the greatest buy-in match in AEW's short history because they'll have a blast. But why did Arn punch Orange Cassidy? First of all, Orange, that's an old man who hasn't wrestled in 23 years.
But it's Arn. I gotta disagree with you there. It's Arn, and
it's Arn, but we don't see enough of Arn doing that to know it's Arn. I'd argue that their core fan base.
Robert, that'd be like me, like talking trash to like a 70-year-old Marine and him just slugging me, and I'm fucking out.
I'll grant you that, but are they overestimating the prior knowledge of their fan base? Does their fan base really know it's Arn? And if Arn even moves, it matters? Because I know that, you know that. Does the 21-year-old fan who only watches the indies and wants to see Orange Cassidy put his hands in his pockets know that that's Arn? And oh my God, Arn just did something physical for the first time in like 18 years.
Well, I mean, I think you want to make that connection of like who Arn is and build it, like show that legacy to the younger fan. But Arn, I mean, ultimately is for like the older fan because we were familiar with it.
I enjoyed it. Like,
yeah.
To me, I'll fantasy book for 5 seconds. This is what I thought. All right, pair him with Tully. Pair Cody and FTR. Let's get this 4 horsemen thing going. Because if we're going to do it, if we're all just going to be assholes here, then let's be assholes because you've got the 4 horsemen sitting there. Let's do it.
Yeah, but you think about that too. Let's do the 4 horsemen. Where's that put the Young Bucks? Where's that put Kenny? Like you have more.
They're the elite. The 3 of them are the elite. The 3 of them always have been the elite. This addition of Cody and Adam and Marty is great. It all came later, but the elite are the 3 core Young Bucks and Kenny Omega. If they want to go and be crybabies that are kind of mad and want to be bad boys again, they can do that. I'm not sold on the whole everybody needs a team vibe that I'm getting from AEW. Like even MJF is gonna wrestle Chris Jericho for the right to join the inner circle. I don't know if everybody needs a team.
No, I kind of appreciated back in the late 90s, like Survivor Series, like 98 and stuff, where you had the gang wars and kind of thing like that. I thought that was kind of cool. But you got to handle it in the right way. And some of this stuff, the factions that you've created or pseudo factions that you're hinting at, if you're going to do it, you have to commit to it. And like a faction that I enjoy is Team Taz. I like Team Taz a lot. And like, because they're a solid trio, and they're trying to recruit more. Somebody like that's kind of making a family, but I think it's to his own benefit is Eddie Kingston. And so, I
have a theory on how that's going to go, and that's going to split right down the middle as soon as
Pac. It should.
As soon as Pac comes back, they're splitting right down the middle. Death Triangle.
I like that.
Kingston and Patriot Wood.
Yeah, I like that. So, but like, yeah, I'm not everybody necessarily needs a faction and things like that, but people do have groups they want to align with and things like that. And so some of it can be a little bit tangible and accessible. But yeah, who doesn't like a loner? I mean, Darby kind of fits that role.
And they got Darby and they've got Mox. They have loners, but I'm just not convinced that everybody they have needs a friend. One of my biggest critiques of like 2010's Diva era was like everybody needs a buddy. And I don't know if everybody needs a buddy. You know, like it's okay to have loose relationships, but not relationships that need to be hammered home every single week.
I'm with you there. So, like, what I ultimately like to see is when you have a baby face and he's being attacked or something unjust is happening to a particular baby face. He's got allies that would come out and help him. So, not necessarily like, hey, we're hanging out every week here, but hey, I'll throw somebody out here like Bret Hart's getting attacked, and here comes the 1-2-3 kid. They don't hang out all the time, but they make this. The 1-2-3 kid makes the save for Bret because he cares about him. So it's just like that kind of thing. But yeah, I'm with you on like not having people, every time, all the time, that kind of thing.
Now, one of the things that I'm worried about with this Young Bucks thing is Cody lost the match last year and then immediately invented the TNT title and then immediately won said title. Are we going to see the Young Bucks lose and then go, all right, but we're with Kenny and we have these trios championships?
Oh, please don't.
Like, I don't know if I want to see that.
I don't want to see that. Too many. Where they're at right now is just fine with.
It's the perfect number of championships. I agree. I think that the ranking system needs a lot of work. I've been candid about that in the past. I don't think they put enough emphasis on that. But it really is concerning when a lot of brands try to add belts because they have the FTW belt. And do you need it? I don't think so.
But you don't need it. But it's like, I think it's a cool perpetrator to get a star over. Like, it's not like it's not you don't want to recognize it, but I think it adds to Brian Cage or maybe somebody else that gets mixed up into it. But
Tony Khan did say during the last media call for All Out that he's working on a third television block that can be centered around the FTW title. I would like to hear more details of that. Maybe it'll change my perception of the belt because right now it's just Brian Cage holding this thing that Taz made in ECW. That again, not knocking the fans, but does everybody have that knowledge? Like, I don't want to be that guy that says, well, I know that the FTW belt was invented because Taz couldn't get a match against Shane Douglas in '99. But does that mean that the average person has to know that? I don't think so.
Yeah. No, yeah, I get that. And talking about the titles too, like what got a big highlight was the NWA Women's World Championship, and what didn't was their own title, which it just seemed very, very strange. I love the match. I thought that was the match of the night, was Serena Deeb versus
Layla Hirsch.
Yeah, Layla Hirsch. Thank you. Yeah, I thought that was amazing. But it was really highlighted when like, okay, that match happened. It was awesome, and like both gals showcase themselves perfectly, but then what happens is backstage you have like a very, very quick promo with Akira Shida setting up a match at Full Gear against Nyla Rose, who we haven't seen for weeks on end.
But here's the thing: Alex Marvez says, "Hikaru Shida, Nyla is refusing to wrestle without you giving her a title match," and I'm good with that. But here's the thing: Nyla can say this for herself. You have so many distribution channels. You've got Dark. You've got a YouTube. You've got Road 2. You've got TikTok. You've got Twitter. You've got Instagram. Say it somewhere where people are watching so that we know, hey, wait a minute. You're not wrestling because you want this title match. You put it with Vicky. You haven't had Vicky do anything. Have Vicky say that every single week. Excuse me. Here's a reminder that my client, Nyla Rose, won't be wrestling. Just make it make sense.
Make it make sense, yeah.
I mean, Pat McAfee last night did a beautiful job of tying together all these loose ends and making life make sense. I want to see more logic, and I know that AEW gets a lot of leeway for being the alternative, but I don't want them to fall into the same logical plot holes that WWE has fallen into for years on end. And I think now is the time to hire so many domestic women's wrestling talent. Good. Trisha Adora, Nicole Savoy, I will say it every time I get a microphone in front of my face. Nicole Savoy is the greatest women's wrestler to not be under a contract. There's Brittany Wonders in Hood Slam. I'm sure, she could come in for a shot or two. Like, sign some people.
Sign some folks. There's like Willow Nightingale out there. There's
Willow Nightingale is fantastic. Roxy from Reality Wrestling. Yeah. You can at least put them in front of your camera. Like, there's so many.
Heck, Layla Hirsch was a standout.
Find her right away. Like, why haven't I seen a picture that says Layla Hirsch?
Yeah, why were we just learning about her now when like there's so many? There's like, and she just did an amazing job and put like, I think behind Thunder Rosa and Serena Deeb, this was like the second best women's match AEW has put on. Both NWA matches.
Yeah, Bob Coast just saying Danny Jordan. Alley Cat. Alley Cat is phenomenal, and she played to that crowd who loves their characters and is a good wrestler. Sign Alley Cat. Do something with Alley Cat. There's so many people out there, and I hope to see AEW just pick up women's wrestlers left and right in 2021. But held off on this long enough, and before we do a quick round of questions, let's talk about Trump. Because this media call, some gentleman had the smartest question ever and said, Vince, we know that Trump said he had you in a group of people who was helping decide when to reopen the country. What are you looking for? And can you give any insight as to what you need before you can start running live events again? And Vince said, well, I think we just need to know that it's safe. And he said, oh, okay, thank you. Went to ask another question, and they said, actually, yeah, we're done. And obviously, I'm being a little facetious here, but like, if you're a believer in conspiracy theories, it's just like, wait a minute, is Vince getting a call from the bat phone right now that the White House is pissed off at him? It's so bizarre because we're all going through this weird COVID adjustment period, and the White House put out this thing that like COVID is
so weird. There you are.
Yeah. Did I go in and out for a second there?
You froze a bit, yeah, but you're okay now. I think. Are we still on air?
Yeah, no, we're still on. No, it's so interesting. Like they cut this thing off randomly. What do you think? Do you think that was a no-no, or do you think it was just overrunning on time?
Well, like there's definitely that's up for debate because you see when the call did end, it was 6:00, but they usually when those conference calls, like when they're going on, they'll be like, oh, we have time for one more question.
One more question, and they just went, nope.
And they were just, oh, hey, guess what? We're done. Hey, let's not talk politics, even though the election's like less than a week away. let's not put our feet to that fire.
I'm sure Vince doesn't want to be anywhere near that fire, regardless of whatever his family.
Even though he's pretty near it, just in general.
Yeah. Listen, I think that for all the conference calls I've heard, this was Vince's best in a while. And I hope to see more growth from WWE in 2021. They kept touting, hey, we're bringing back people that we furloughed. And that's going to be an adjustment. They wouldn't commit to a Saudi event. I found that interesting. They're not sure. It's on the schedule. Every time they do those network commercials, they're showing Super Showdown, but they wouldn't commit to it. So a lot of like open-ended stuff, but at least we know we're getting a Vince McMahon documentary. We're getting an Indian show, whatever that may be. Maybe they'll revive Rinka King. If anybody knows what that is. I wasn't blown away by this media call. It wasn't like the last one where they asked about Paul Heyman and Vince just goes, that's a lot. I thought it was good. I thought Vince sounded sure of himself. The new executives sound sure of themselves in their creative direction. And we'll just have to see where things go. But as always, we do take some questions from the audience before we wrap up here. And while you guys are getting your questions in, Dom, tell us about what you're doing, man.
Yeah, so each week, like we said earlier, I have the show with my degenerate brother Marcus, two dynamite dudes with attitude, where we just run down completely. Give our thoughts on AEW Dynamite for that week and what's been happening and the news surrounding that. And it's a good time. Me and Marcus bust each other's balls quite a bit, so that's always fun. And we just cover, so we'll have our Halloween spectacular tomorrow for it. So tune in for that. And I just interviewed Matt McCarthy of the We Watch Wrestling podcast right after Hell in a Cell took place, actually. So I got his immediate take on the pay-per-view. And then we talked a lot about different stuff. Like he's not only the host of that podcast, but he has a new album out, comedy stand-up album, Sober Dad. And he also it does other podcasts too about his video collection that he's had, his VHS collection, and other things too. So he's a two-time writer there at WWE. So he gave a lot of insight.
A two-time writer. So he left and came back and then left again.
And was a consultant too. So, but he's got a lot of interesting takes about like Vince, everything like that. And if you're familiar with the We Watch Wrestling podcast, it's so funny. He does some awesome impressions, and him and Vince have like Vince Averill is his co-host. They have innate chemistry with one another. So it was cool to actually interact with Matt and talk with him for like over an hour. So tune into that on the podcast feed. And like you see there, you can follow me on Twitter at Dominic D'Angelo.
That's right. And for me, you can check out everything I'm doing by following me on Twitter at DudeFelice. Check out Fightful.com and Fightful Select. Sean Ross Sapp works his ass off to give such good scoops to the world of wrestling. And it's honestly, he's just a good dude, and that's a great team. And as we have here, we have a great team here with Bill Pritchard, Tyler Treese, yourself, who I will say again, greatest asset to the website. John Clark is great. Colin Tessier is great. And we just appreciate all of you guys showing love to WrestleZone, which has been around since like 98.
It's crazy to think that. Like, you tell me, like, back then when I'm like going on the internet looking at WrestleZone.com, that that's like a person for them. It's just kind of weird to think. It's like, wow, I would have expected that. But to your point too, it's like the media, wrestling media and stuff like that. It's pretty neat that we're all doing our own thing and kind of thing like that, but we still have a connection with one another. Like Sean Ross Sapp does amazing work, and it's neat to see good people kind of flourish in it, where there's the media businesses can in any situation, whether it's sports or politics or whatever, it can be all over the place. And that same goes for here. You got your apples in this mix too, but we're not one of them. I would like to think, and definitely Sean Ross Sapp isn't either. So.
Oh, thank you. And you got your hands in other stuff too. And James wants to know, since you do work closely with Major League Wrestling, Jacob Fatu, any chances he could be making the jump to WWE? He would be great as Roman's heater. Now, we happen to know that he has signed a multi-year deal with Major League Wrestling, so it's not happening yet. But oh boy, when you talk legacy of the Fatu clan and the Anoa'i clan, Jacob Fatu might be right up there with Roman Reigns, maybe 1 and 2 for their status in the family right now.
Yeah.
He's great.
Oh, he's amazing. And not just the athleticism, but the charisma he shows as a monster heel, and what he contributes to Contra and the MLW brand. I don't think you'll see him. I think he signed like a 5 year.
It's a lot of years.
It's a long time. And you know what? I think that's really perfect for him, because you put him with Roman Reigns. Who's going to be the bigger star is Roman Reigns, just by, he's already an established talent in WWE and everything like that. So
for now, I would argue that if anybody has the chance to, up the ante, it'd be Jacob Fatu. I think he could easily go.
But will he have that opportunity to do so if he's under the WWE umbrella? Because you know how Vince is when it comes to bringing other talent in from another company. Hey, Roman is my star. Sting is not my star, even though he was your star at that time.
Now, if you're telling me that about somebody like an Alex Hammerstone, I'll agree with you. But when they got the last name Fatu, I think Vince can smell
I don't
money.
know. Yeah, maybe not. Yeah, you could maybe be right. But honestly, like MLW is he's gonna flourish there. You're gonna see more of him, and I mean, the restart's coming up early November here, so it's
Here's somebody that nobody talks about. I bet WWE would be salivating to get their hands on Selena De La Renta.
oh my gosh, she's awesome.
And
Like,
we don't have female managers like her in WWE. I'm sure as soon as her availability comes up, they will be knocking on the door.
now she's also signed a multi-year deal too.
I do not blame her. They have strapped the whole show on her back. She will be producing some of the shows.
So, because, like, she honestly does, like, not just what you see, like, as a personality on air. She does a whole bunch of stuff. She does the Spanish commentary. She does produce, and like so much different stuff for them. So it's, yeah, she's somebody that's invaluable. Like, and yeah, just a standout talent. Again, you put her in WWE, like just how WWE set up, the handcuffs are coming on. Like, I mean, like look at Zelina Vega is perfect, a awesome manager and had that personality to elevate Andrade or whoever she was with. And where's she right now? Like,
Yeah, I know. I gotta agree with you there. I think for certain talents, Major League Wrestling is the better fit. I know they got Pillman and Bulldog for a while, and they'll continue to do some great work throughout the restart. Hammerstone, I said it, but like Hammerstone is just, God, he's so good. Like you look at him and he just looks like a main event wrestler to me. And there's not many of those guys left. But you look at Alex Hammerstone and you just go, yeah, I get it.
And not just from an appearance level, like from a charisma level too. He's got that attitude where it's like he's one of those stars that you could totally put back in the 90s, and he would fight for that top spot. And like, he's really passionate about where he is in MLW, and he's very outspoken with how supportive MLW has been for him. So he's somebody that has full confidence in himself and knows that they're able to be a star in the business. And like, that's really what you want to see with wrestlers today. And, you don't see that all too often nowadays. So it's just a different landscape. But Hammerstone is one of those guys that, boom, he's there and he's going to make waves.
That's right. And the restart is coming up in early November. And there have been some reports about some debuting names that you might have seen in WWE, and you can check them out on the socials, at MLW, at Major League Wrestling. And, they just signed a new deal with beIN Sports. They're on DAZN. MLW may be one to watch in 2021. But here's another one. Laura The Rock wants to know, if you could make any dream tag team, who would you pick?
Dream tag team. That's tough. If we're coming from a WWE perspective.
Yeah, let's say like they have to be active currently, because we could talk all day about historic dream teams.
Now I could get real like fantasy and like do a wild mashup here. Robert, do you have one in mind? Because I got a couple turn in my head, but if you have one immediately, I can lay some out.
So less and less these days, but I always felt like when they were middling around the card that The Miz and Dolph Ziggler, if you just paired them together, a few years ago when they had nothing going for them, I always thought that they could really provide like that New Age Outlaws edge that, seemingly pushed Billy Gunn and Road Dogg to the top in the 90s. More on the younger side of things, I gotta tell you, I'm looking at, let's say, like a Damian Priest.
Okay.
And you pair like Rhea as the female, you got Damian Priest, and maybe like a younger guy, a mouthpiece. I can't really say who I'd put in that position, but I know that I'd like to see Damian Priest as a tag team guy, like as the Big Daddy Cool Diesel to somebody's HBK.
I like that. I think, obviously, I would love to see these two feud, and I'm sure we're going to see these two feud down the road here. But I'm big fans of Karrion Kross and Finn Balor. You know, I think that would make a pretty neat tag team down the road.
Now, Rey Mysterio this past Sunday on WWE Ahora said, "If I could get in Hell in a Cell with anybody, it'd be Finn Balor." What do you think about a Finn Balor Rey Mysterio Hell in a Cell match?
I don't think you could really. That would be very cool to see, especially if Finn Balor brings back the Demon for that.
If I could just get my DeLorean and take 2002 Rey Mysterio, I'd probably do that. That's the only change I'd make. I think that those guys are fantastic. Hopefully, Finn Balor comes back from his jaw injury soon enough. But that is going to do us in. If you go over to WrestleZone.com, we have full breakdown of the investor call, some key articles from there, Matt Riddle's name change and all the stuff going on there. Dominic's got tremendous interviews with Matt McCarthy, James Storm, Terry Funk's in the podcast feed. Myself, you can hear me on this show Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday. We've got news flashes on all of our socials. We've got so many things. I know you guys were asking about where is Kevin. Kevin is doing the AAW live show, which you can catch on Fight TV tonight. That's where Kevin is. He'll be back on Monday. Dom, this is a great time. I invite all of you to keep following, keep asking questions. We're a very interactive place here in the zone. But Dominic, when we watch wrestling, if we're not, bitching back and forth, what do we got to do?
You know what? Once you end a conference call abruptly, all you just got to do is think about this: is enjoy wrestling.
Actually, that's the end of our show. That's the end, actually.
Yeah, that's it. Hey, no, you know what? We're done.
If you have any questions, you can refer to our manager.
Just talk to our the publicist here.
Thank you.